So that's probably how you can make that adjustment. And I like to do all of this stuff. Not all of it. This goes back to having our headliner, the superstar movie star, and then having some supporting cast members. You never want to have the cast members upstage your superstar. And I like one of the things that I think I try to make my meads unique, and they're certainly not unique in that much of a special order, but I like to do a lot of things that fly under the radar, that adds mystery and some suspense, and you go, boy, and you can overdo it, but I like to hear when people say, wow, there's a lot going on there, and then they have to sit there and try to pick their brain and go, what? And they start to call out things. I like to have that where immediately it's not just a 2-horse pony where they go, oh, okay, I get honey and I get plums. Well, honey and plums could taste wonderful, but if you had some honey and some plums with some other underlying things in there to add some complexity to your overall experience, I think that could oftentimes be a better mead, although there's often very nice. It's hard to make something good and simplistic at the same time. That's another whole different challenge. But so that's how you could probably adjust your overly acidic fraction from your black currants.
Wow. Daniel just posted a picture of his drawing, and it's like picture perfect, literally like a perfect circle, perfectly straight lines. Where's your bird foot, dude? I don't see. Oh, there it is. Okay.
Yeah. Got his Austin's tan in there.
Yeah, that looks pretty good, Danny.
Awesome. He's going to be able to take this home and make it work for him then probably right away.
Yeah, he's doing it all on his computer. It's hilarious. This is in Word, nice. It looks like. But yeah, it's like totally perfect.
So, is there other questions coming from the peanut gallery?
That is what we've got so far. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of like chatter and commentary, but not a lot of specific questions.
Okay. Is that clear to you guys too, or do you have anything that maybe isn't so clear that you could clarify with a different approach?
I haven't played a lot with acid. I mean, I still, to a lot of extent, I live in a very simplistic world when making my mead. So I'm not a real super scientific person. This is why I'm a marketer and not a biologist, which is what I started out to do. But I go by taste. I kind of take the Bobby route.
You have to.
I take the Bobby route on this, and I go by taste, and so I'm not like measuring pH or anything like that. I taste it and base it on what I know from my 15 years of judging, and I use that. To Danny just asked, did we like his teeter-totter? Yes, Danny, we love your teeter-totter. And
so that's a good point, guys. This all is based on your taste buds.
It's balance is what it is.
Yeah.
In the end, it comes down to balance. I mean, and I'm right there with Bob Slants with, if you're not tasting your mead all the way through the ferment, then it doesn't matter. I don't care what the numbers say. I really don't. I mean, I've never measured, except for my hydrometer, I do not measure the numbers. And I go by, how does it taste? Does it feel like it's balanced? Does it feel like it needs something? And then I might bring out additional tools, like do a titration or something to get an idea of how much acid I might need to add. But I let my taste buds speak first.
You have to, because it's not a machine that's going to drink your meat for you. I knew a friend of mine on the forums that I know he's got a background, I think just as a home wine maker, and wine's kind of a lot different than mead, in as much as there have been so much testing with wines that they can tell you that most people like a red wine that falls within this particular category, and they give you numbers. And they say also most people like white wines that fall in this particular number range as well. And my friend made some meads that he pre-adjusted all of these different parameters before he even pitched his yeast. And then he made his back end adjustments so that they would fall into the particular parameters, and quite frankly, I was excited knowing he was going to send some to me, and when they got here, I was frankly pretty disappointed because they were not they weren't very good.
Yeah,
they just weren't, and so hopefully after you practice the science that we've taught in the last 6 weeks, when I first started with these guys in here, that's going to make you some very good mead without much problems, without faults. It's now learning this second piece is what really makes a difference between what I call a good mead and something that's magical. A lot of times in the competitions, you get a mead that measures scores of 42, 43, or above. And at the Mazer Cup, those numbers don't even guarantee that you move on into the mini bus to show. But
no.
In any case, at a certain point, and we as judges, I think our number one intention, especially for the home brewers, is we want to hopefully give you information that you can use to learn to make your meads even better. When I get into those lower to mid 40s and on up, oftentimes I'm just honest with the people and I say, this is so good, I really don't have a suggestion for you what to do with it different to make it better. But unfortunately, it's very good, but it lacks what I call that last little intangible that you can't measure with a machine, but it makes it magical. You go, wow, that's really good, but for some reason, wow, this is even better.
Yeah.
And these kinds of things that we're looking at tonight, once you practice those and learn to understand them, I think the difference I see it is somebody that we can all read a recipe and cook dinner tonight, right? But very few of us are chefs and know how all of these different pieces play together with each other and how they impact our palates and whatnot. And so this is the chef piece, and I don't claim to have this down either. We're all on a learning curve here in this thing called mead, but these are the tools that we want to learn to use.
Yeah, and I mean, and the thing is that, and I run across this. I'm a foodie, and I love to cook. I cook all the time, and about probably 2/3 of the recipes that I make are stuff I've made up because I've combined flavors that work for us, that we like.
Right.
And that doesn't mean they're the right flavors or anything like that. Somebody else might not like them, but I know I've impressed my dad. I mean, he's the guy that like everything is yuck, and so if he eats he more often than not he has a second helping, which to me says yes,
he likes
success.
It.
It means I've done good because Daddy likes it. Yeah, but the thing is though is that y'all need to look at. What are the flavors doing? How are they coming together? And it's not just, like your honey and your fruit or your honey and your spices or honey and your fruit and your spices, but the balance of the sweet and the tart, the balance of the various flavors, that are in there, the bitter and the umami, and does it feel right to you? Does it, and this is your mead, so it's what feels right to you. What a judge says may or may not have an impact. It certainly doesn't hurt to have somebody who's experienced with this give you feedback. But, the balance is what you're looking for. And that is the number one thing that as judges we're looking for is balance. So it's the sweet balance with the tart. It's the honey balance with the acid. It's everything's got to come together in a synergistic whole that creates that magic that Ryan's talking about. And I can't recommend strongly enough books like the Flavor Bible, where you start to really dig into what is flavor and how do they go together, in a way that makes a pleasing whole. Because that's a lot of things, and I see this with people in my cooking groups that I'm in, where they're like, well, I just don't know how to make blah, blah, blah taste good. And it's like, well, and I just jump in there and go, well, do this, this, and this. And they're like, how'd you know that? Going, well, because I like to eat. And
I didn't understand how a judge could when I first started asking people about recipes that I wanted to try, and not recipes I found, but my own stuff that I wanted to build. I didn't know how you guys on Got Mead could look at it and tell me what's wrong or right about it.
Yeah.
And now you can too.
It's experience,
for sure,
yeah. It's experience and having done it for yourself. And that's the big thing. And somebody said earlier on, it came up in the chat, which is exceedingly active tonight. Thanks, guys. So it came up in the chat about, how do you learn to make good mead? You make mead. You're going to make some shitty mead. I've made tons of shitty meads. And that's okay. I've got 3 sitting in the kitchen right now that are going down the drain because I want those carboys back so I can make more mead. And I'm going to try some different stuff to give me some different results. those ones went sideways because I went out of town because my grandson was born and I was something more busy, something more important came up. But, you have to, use the science because we know that if you feed your yeast, the yeast are happy and they create happier alcohol that's got less off notes in it. So these are all good things. But in the end result, the final flavor combination is what's going to make or break your mead.
And, oftentimes when a newbie comes on, they want a recipe, right?
Yeah, that does no good.
I understand that, but one of the first things, and this, when you said just make mead, here's how you learn to make good mead. The first meads you learn to make are traditionals. Mm-hmm. Because nothing can hide.
I wish somebody told me that.
Oscar told me that.
Yeah, well, no, Oscar wasn't around when I started. He was making mead, but I didn't know him then. So.
And when I take on a new student, that's the first thing. You have to agree that we're going to make traditionals. And I'm not anybody special, but I am willing to spend my time and energy to teach somebody. And so, and I get sometimes frustrated when somebody asks a question on the forums and I give them some good answers and then they come back and want to change it. And they're like, why do you ask me for my help if you don't want to do, if you just continue to want to go on and do your own thing? And I get it if people want to challenge you or ask because they want to learn why. But so the first thing you got to do is make traditionals so your science works. And if you do that, you've raised the bar for every other thing that you've ever will make the rest of your life.
Yep. I had a guy email me the other day wanting to make JAO, Joe's Ancient Orange, for those of you who don't know what JAO is.
Thank you, Jaden, for posting the recipe.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah, thank you for the recipe. A Hydrant's Blessing.
Wants to forget about it.
Yeah. And does it have vanilla in it? Because if it doesn't have vanilla in it, it's not Jaden's recipe. But anyway, this guy wanted to make JAO, and JAO is very clear in that, it says all the way through the recipe, do it this way or die. Don't change it. It's this way. Just stop asking questions and just do what I tell you. All the way through it. And this guy's like, so if I change out the yeast and these fruits and this thing here and that thing there, what will happen? And I said, it won't be JAO.
Right.
I said, go ahead. If you've never made it, make it the way it says. This is my standard rule for food recipes, mead recipes, whatever. Make it the way it says the first time. Don't fuck with it. Pardon my French. Just do it the way it says. And then, once you've got that right, then you get to change it.
Well, and you see the reason why JOAM works, JOA, is that through total accident or through knowledge, all of these parts and pieces that we're talking about that have to come together in a way that makes sense do because of the particular particulates in the recipe.
Yeah, Joe went through, I don't even know. I remember when Joe posted that recipe originally, when he made it. He was very active on the Got Mead forums then. He's not now. But he was telling us in a separate conversation that he went through, I don't even know how many variations on this thing before he got this. Before he got JAO and posted the recipe. We never saw the other variations. We got the final result. And, for... Gosh, over a decade, this is the recipe you start with. Yes, I know it's bread yeast, and y'all shut up about that. It still works.
It gives you something to drink while you're learning how to make real mead.
Well, while you're learning the science. And that's great, because it makes a really drinkable product, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. It works. But, shoot. AJ's made how many different variations? Yeah.
I can't even count anymore.
Right.
And,
yeah.
I actually won a competition with one that I didn't enter. A friend of mine entered it for me.
There you go.
I won a competition with that, and everybody absolutely adored it. And that was made with bread yeast. So
yeah. Well, I did a 5-gallon batch of it that disappeared in less than 15 minutes that I put out at a party after a Ren Fair. It was hilarious. But the point being though that if the recipes are great, but don't go screwing with it until you've done it, and use the practices recommended by the person who created the recipe.
And the reason it works is because